Hello, Saints Nation. As you've probably heard by now, Seaside Events and the New Orleans Saints have come together to plan the official Saints Legends fan cruise aboard the amazing Norwegian getaway selling out of New Orleans, Louisiana in April of 2025. I'm Nick Valinchak, and I can't wait to sail away with you on the inaugural Saints Legends fan cruise. This journey promises to be fun, adventurous. I'm sure we'll talk a little football along the way. Let's gear up to paint the seas black and gold. And with that being said, I'm excited this evening, July 2nd, to talk with a man that really needs no introduction on or off the field, Mr. Van Jakes. How are we doing tonight, Mr. Jakes?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk through your playing career, talk a little bit about what you're doing nowadays, what football has meant to you, and we're definitely going to touch on this fan cruise, which should be an interesting opportunity to interact with Saints Nation. I'm interested in hearing a little bit first about your time at Kent State. Now, just for perspective, I'm in Youngstown, Ohio.
Awesome.
Which happens to be 40 minutes from Kent State. So it's an area I'm very familiar with. I was kind of excited. Not too often I get to talk about my own backyard, but do you have any memories or anything that really sticks out as something that you'll never forget from your time at Kent State?
Yeah, it's amazing that Kent State is really right up the road from Canton, Ohio. And high school football, to me, was just like huge when I got to college. We didn't have that same kind of atmosphere in Buffalo, New York, where I grew up. When I got to Kent, I remember a lot of guys came from Kent, McKinley, and I think I went down to one game, I believe. We had a bye week, and it was amazing that they had like 10,000 at a high school football game. I had never seen that. And then fast forward, we get to go down and be there when Sam got introduced and inducted to the Hall of Fame. It was just surreal for me that I played 45 minutes away from where Sam got inducted. So that was the biggest connection. And I enjoyed playing, started for 4 years in college, but that was the biggest takeaway, knowing how big high school football was, and then of getting the Hall of Fame right down the road.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I believe that football was technically created around here as well in the Northeast Ohio area. And still to this day, I mean, there are a multitude of high-end high school football teams where the players get recruited at the D1 level, and it's pretty wild. I mean, you wouldn't think of that as this is the Rust Belt. It's not a huge populated area like New York City or LA, but it definitely has a special place for football, and especially with the Hall of Fame being right down the street. Now, you played for the Saints from 1986 to 1988. New Orleans, I mean, is such a special place just in itself. It's like, I always tell people, when you go to New York City, if you're entering in via car, it just kind of like appears like in a movie, and it's the whole landscape, and you are really entering a new world when you go to New York City. But New Orleans is kind of the same. It has this just its own energy and vibrancy. So what do you really remember and cherish about your time? Not necessarily specifically with the Saints, but like of the New Orleans area in general.
Well, the biggest takeaway, I remember I played with Vaughn Johnson in the USFL a year before, and I was traveling around to see where I was going to end up. I think I went to Miami, New York. So I get to New Orleans, and Vaughn had already signed, and it was a real big pool party. I never will forget that. Just huge pool party. And I didn't want to be like, hey, Nicholas, what's going on? It's your birthday. So I just kind of waited. Eventually I said, hey, what's the party for? And the guy, I never will forget, he said, man, we had a rough weekend. We partying because it was Monday. We made it through the weekend. I'm like, oh my, this is different. This is different. I mean, it was just an unbelievable party. They were just having a party just to celebrate the weekend and start off another week. And I said, this is going to be different. And it was. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's when you know you're in a special place where they're having a party to celebrate the party that they had partying. It's a really, truly unique experience.
Was.
So talking a little bit about football, is there something that sticks out to you specifically about your playing career with the Saints?
Well, I,
that
I have,
you love to sit back and think
I
about?
have to go right back to that Pittsburgh Steelers game when we, I think it was 87, I believe, 86, 87. And we needed the game to clinch the first winning season ever in Saints history. And the Saints, we had the lead, and then the Steelers was marching on us. They got down on our goal line. It was first and goal. And I remember Sam being in a huddle. He made a comment like, "Hey, we stop these guys, we go down to Saints history. First and goal, we stop them. Second and goal, we stop them. Third and goal, we stop them. Fourth and goal, and by the way, I'm going in and out of the game because I don't know if they're going to pass or run. And Coach Sitwell was kind of like, if they pass, you're in. If they run, you're out. So one player go in, one player go out. So on fourth down, he's guessing they're going to pass, right? So they don't pass and they run. And I'm like, oh, okay. And they run out my side, and I happen to, block, make sure my guy go in, and Sam and Vaughn and Ricky and all them guys do their job, and they stop him. Brett Maxey, they stop him on the 1 yard line, and I just raised my hands like, we stopped him. And so, it was all in the Times Picayune, the Saints, first winning season ever. But then Dalton Hilliard says, VJ, well, what's wrong with this pitcher? And I'm like, well, I'm excited. We stopped him. He said, everybody's on the ground but you. Right? I'm watching. I'm looking. I had the best seat in the house, so that was like the biggest memory of all. And I was had a lot of great memories in New Orleans playing, but that's got to be the one. It's got to be number one.
Yeah, I mean that is I would classify that as like a Hollywood type memory. Like that's what you see in the movie when they make the football movies. That's what you see, and so that's got to be really special to be able to look back on and know you were a part of it. And hey, man, you're standing up because you don't know whether you're supposed to be in or you're supposed to be out. You think they're going to pass, but they run. You have to be nimble, and sometimes that means you were prepared just in case all those guys in
That's
front of
right.
you didn't get the
Right. They
job
ran
done.
around the
That's the
corner.
way
I
to
was
look
gonna be
at it.
ready to go run again. I'm gonna use that as a schedule. But I had some great linebackers and defensive line. Jim Wilkes. These guys were. We had an unbelievable defense those years. Unbelievable.
And we're going to have quite a few of those guys on the cruise, so it's going to be a fun time to be able to talk about those memories and relive it in the moment. Was there a certain player that when you were going up against them that they brought you to the next level either because they were so good that you knew you were going to be tested against them, or you just didn't like them and you wanted a chance to get a hit in on them?
No, I always kind of kept my calm because playing cornerback, you get high headed, and these guys are so fast. Everybody each week, but of course Jerry Rice had to be one that was just so well prepared, ran such good routes. Him and Montana chemistry was just on point. We had a good pass rush, but those guys were tough to play against, and we played them twice a year. So Rice and Montana, that crew was something else. They were a handful.
I'm sure that's something you definitely wanted to get up for though, because you don't want to be shown up, right? You want to be the guy that limits Jerry Rice. You want to hear the broadcast talk about, oh, he's going up against VJ and we know the history between these guys and he's been the limiter, and you're always out there pushing to try to make sure that's who you can
So now
be.
we had some other guys in the huddle that wasn't quite like me. They were very vocal. It was like, no, as a matter of fact, you need to cover them up. We're gonna get there, but you need to give us enough time to get there. And that would be Ricky Jackson and Pat
Okay.
a little bit too, because they would have some rush going. So we had to do our job, and they would let you know, hey, you need to do your job because we're gonna do ours. But
Yeah, it takes a team. It definitely does, and it takes all kinds. It takes the cult of
oh
personality on the team to make the engine go.
yeah,
So sounds like you guys had a really tight knit unit that worked hard. And, I mean, that's nothing to shy away from being the first team to actually, have a winning record for the Saints. Like that's something that's always going to go down in history. And that you have that um, in your back pocket. Now, when it comes to current Saints players and maybe even just like football players in general, but I do kind of want to keep it specific to the Saints. Do you have any advice that you would give them, inspiration, wisdom, anything like that you want to impart to the next generation of
well,
Saints
well,
footballers?
I look at it now, 40 years later, that I'm still close with Dalton Hilliard, Ricky, Pat. We play golf together. I mean, my heart goes out to Vaughn and Sam. because when we were at the Hall of Fame, we were so happy for him, but at the same time we were sad because he should have been there celebrating. So you could cherish those moments with those teammates. It's lifelong friends. It's guys you went to war with, guys you had kids and grew up and life and did what it's supposed to do. But that team camaraderie goes a long way. So cherish those moments, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, that's good life advice in general. Make sure you're keep looking out for those close to you that you have those memories with, and doesn't hurt to pick up a phone or send a text to just check in on how people are
Absolutely.
doing. So that brings us to kind of where you're at today. And, we talked a little bit before the call. Um, you've been a you've been one of the success stories coming out of professional football and making sure that there was like a financial future for yourself and your family. I think we've all heard the horror stories over the last 40 years of people who have made millions on millions on millions and are in positions where they're stocking shelves in the grocery stores, either because they didn't know how to manage their money properly, or the people that they put as stewards of their money didn't use it wisely, or just, fraudulently did what they had to do. So tell us a little bit about like what gave you that push to want to make sure that you were involved in something that could kind of continuously be earning income for you, so you didn't have to like leave too much of the lifestyle that you were living behind.
Well, I just kind of fell into it a little bit. I remember when I first got into the league, I came in with Kansas City. That was my first team. So it was an offensive guard that was on the team. And then every day after practice, he would get dressed up. He would have bloody nose. And, linemen, they're tough, especially back then. His name is Tom Condon. So Tom was going back to school to become a lawyer. And I
Mm-hmm.
never really paid much attention to it. I just, like, that was odd. So, a couple of years go by, I meet a guy. He's like, man, you got to start saving money. And I'm like, I am. He said, no, you got to save like a black hole. And that made me think about saving in terms of to buy something or just have money. And then eventually I met a banker down in Jacksonville. And he's like, what do you want to do after football? I was just like my third year. I'm like, I have no idea. He said, you need to start thinking about it. Do a little research every year and come back. We have lunch. And then I said, I think I want to own my own business. And every year he would just prod me to go and do a little more research. And back then you had to go to the library. So that what made me think about becoming a franchisee. And I was a McDonald's franchisee for like 26 years. But that kind of was the seed, watching Tom do something different. And then like, where is this guy going? I'm like, where is he going? I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that just made me start thinking. That's all you need to do sometimes, is just throw darts at things. Because a lot of guys now, like, I don't know what to do. Well, you know what you don't want to do, so you narrow it down. And that made me start thinking I want to own a business. And I had no business background, but I was pretty successful for a few years.
Tom Condon, for those who don't know, ended up becoming a super agent within the ranks of sports. So, I mean, his decision ultimately ended up panning out very well for
Right.
him, and he became very successful. And I'm sure at the time when you've had opportunities to talk to some of the younger football players, you've imparted that wisdom to them, right?
Exactly. The same thing is like, make sure you have some real, what savings is. And a real big one is to know how to say no, from your friends and family. I'll say it again, friends and family, learn how to say no, and which is having a buffer. Let me get back with, send me an email. And those are things that, we weren't taught, because we weren't taught about any kind of financial literacy. So we certainly weren't taught about how to manage your money. And so a lot of guys, when I did some seminars, that was some of the things that I would tell them: learn how to say no.
Yeah, and the game's got to change too in terms of financial literacy, because now with the NIL and this stuff is starting in high school at this point basically. And you even see it in pop culture. You see 15-year-olds getting super rich on Instagram and YouTube, and that in 10 years we're going to be seeing these stories about these people who amassed millions quickly and now have
Exactly.
nothing and are in fact in debt because of poor decisions. So it is important, and thank you. I think being a part of the solution is always the biggest thing you can do to make sure that other people don't have to go through what you've maybe seen some of your friends and former teammates go through, and that they could have a strong sense of financial literacy for
Right.
themselves.
Because you're always going to have pitfalls, even if you're a good steward of money. So,
Oh, for
yeah, so
sure.
now I spend a lot of my time, not a lot of my time, on boards, nonprofits. trying to help get that word out that you can reinvent yourself as long as you have the knowledge to do it.
Definitely. All right, let's talk about something that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this 2025 Saints Legends fan cruise on the NCL getaway. We're going to be going to Costa Maya,
Yes,
Cozumel, Harvest
yes.
Cay, and Roatan. Are you a big cruiser? Have you done this
I've done a
before?
few cruises, but this will be the first one that we've done like this. That we would have fans on board. I mean, every now and then you go someplace and you might be recognized, or somebody look at you and say, "You must play" or whatever, and they might have been a Saints fan or might have been a football fan, but this is going to be different where these are Saints fans. So I think that's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a lot of fun, and then we can interact that way. My wife is coming, so she's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to play a little golf and to share some of these stories, and a lot of stories that we don't forgot, some of the locker room stories that we used to talk about. So I'm looking forward to interacting with the fans.
I was talking to Ricky Jackson a little bit earlier, and he was telling me he was actually looking for new golf clubs. So I'm assuming he was looking for them to take them on the
Yeah.
cruise. So it sounds like there's going to be a lot of golf going on there. Is there anything that you want to like? Is there anything that you're extra excited about in terms of what you'll have the opportunity to do on the cruise with the fans?
Again, just being, sharing some inside detail stories about locker room stories for the people that you don't know, but they are diehard Saints fans because we got one of the best fan bases out. I remember when we used to lose games, and they would be like, "Man, did you see them Saints?" But when we won games, like, "Man, how about them Saints?" But they were always there. Some of these other markets, I don't want to call them no name. I live in Atlanta, but I want to say
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta. If you lose, it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
like they're not talking about you, but at least they still talk to you. They came and they still talk to us. So that's what I think is gonna be unique is having some diehard fans who's been with the team through ups and downs and still with the team.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I'm a fan of multiple things. I've been a sports fan for, I'm 40, so I've been a sports fan for 40 years. I mean, I was watching it as a young child, professional wrestling fan, fans of different television shows and things like that. And I think sometimes the best part of growing up and having access like we have now that we didn't have 40 years ago with social media and opportunities like this with the cruise is hearing those stories, the behind the scenes
Yeah,
stuff, and really, like it's possible that the Saints fans collectively have never heard the story you
right,
told about what happened in that Pittsburgh
right,
game. And for a lot of people, I mean, that was like a defining moment in their childhood that they were watching with their dad and their mom and their grandpa. And as they get older and these people start to pass, they remember the people, places, and things that were around them when those things were happening. So it's not just remembering the Saints' glory, but it's remembering all of those people that we got to celebrate with. So I think that's going to be really fun. Um, why do you think Saints fans should come on the cruise?
man. I tell you that too. It's like I remember. I could kind of use it as an analogy. I remember watching Joe Namath play and the way he talked. But and he was a broadcaster for a little while, and I was not really a Jets fan, but I was a Joe Namath fan. So he came to a practice we had, and somehow he started telling us about the last drive they had to win the Super Bowl. And we sat down like we were kids in a candy store, and he told us about the drive, and then he said, got down to late in the game. And he was like, hey fellas, and he had that little New York accent by then. It's time to play. And the guys said, Joe, we've been playing all game. But then he repeated it in a New York accent again. No, it's time to really play. I mean, we had chill bumps going up and down our arms. We could have ran through walls because just hearing that story from him, because he was there, it's a different meaning. And so hopefully, we get a chance to sit around the bar or wherever at the beach, whatever the question they have, we can start interacting a little bit because we all got stories. We all, been there. I was only with New Orleans for 3 years, but that was 3 great years. But Sam, I'm sorry, with Ricky and Dalton, some of these other guys been around so long, man. They've got all kind of stories. We still got a lot of stories about the coaches, Jim Moore, how he had a clause about being late. So we were up at the Hall of Fame again, and one of the linebackers said, "Coach, it was so bad about late is late." He would say, "If you 1 minute late or 30 seconds late, you're late, right?" So he said, "Coach, it was so bad. I had my hand on the doorknob." He's like, "You're late," and the coach was like, "No, I didn't say that," but we were just laughing and joking. So I think, having a chance to interact with us like that, I think it's going to be unbelievable time for us as well as the fans.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. We're going to have parties on the beach. We're going to have parties on the ship. We're going to have question and answer sessions, trivia sessions. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for Saints fans to really have an intimate. That's the best part about this is it's really a chance to have like an intimate opportunity to talk about your love of the game and the
Yeah.
Saints and be around like-minded people. So that's going to be fun. Hey, as we end this, I just want to ask you, is there a place that fans can go to follow you on social media or just keep track with what you're doing in your business
Well,
life?
I'm old, so I got to look at it. I only do like Instagram. I think it's yeah, kind of got to give me a second here. What is that? Van Jake 22 MGTCO. That's my Instagram. You can follow me there. Twitter. I think it's is it X now? What's it called? X? I think it changed.
It's X now,
X.
yeah.
What is X here? X is again. I'm old. At Van Jakes 2. So you guys can hit me at Van Jakes 2 on X, and again Jake 22 on Instagram, and I'll be able to follow you. You can follow me, and it'll be a fun time.
All right, and for us too, you can follow us on Instagram at Saints Legends Fan Cruise, all one word. And I can't wait to meet you all, share stories, and make new memories on the Saints Legends Fan Cruise. It's going to be a journey to remember, and we will see you on board.